to not bend and things still remain the same. And I don't wanna play. So you see that this is not the way to be, and the time has come to choose. If it comes down to a fight between you and me, then you are doomed to lose.
Keep the red flag flying there.
I've been to see the Prime Minister to resign as Secretary of State for Health and Social Care. I understand the enormous sacrifices that everybody in this country has made, that you have made, and those of us who make these rules have got to stick by them, and that's why I've got to resign. I want to thank people for their incredible sacrifices and what they've done. Everybody working in the NHS, across social care, everyone involved in the vaccine programme, and frankly, everybody in this country who has risen to the challenges that we've seen over this past 18 months. I'm very proud of what we've done to protect the NHS at the peak, to deliver that vaccine rollout, one of the fastest in the world. And I look forward to supporting the government and the Prime Minister from the backbenches to make sure that we can get out of this pandemic. We're so close to the end, and then build back better so that this country can fulfill its potential, which is so great. And I will do that with all of my heart.
Hello and welcome to Socialist Night Live. That was excruciating. Like I don't know whether if I could handle going through something like that again. We'll talk about that in a second, but firstly, let's introduce our guest tonight. Obviously, Laura isn't really a guest. You don't count as a guest, but you do count as a member of Socialist think tank and someone a regular person. What am I even on about?
I am how I
just
define
prattling
myself
on.
on a daily basis. I'm just a regular kind of guy.
Just a regular kind of guy. Okay, so we've also got Socialist think tank member Mark Lungley. Hi, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Welcome from the Black Country. Well, I'm actually just outside the Black Country, but most people I brought up in there, so I'm one of the Black Country members for the Socialist think tank.
Yeah, we've got quite a strong membership down there. Speaking of Socialist think tank members, lovely to see Kat Crayon saying evening all. Kat looked after me today when we were evacuated from a tube station. She's awesome. She just knew everything. Someone who worked, like an RMT worker who works on the tube. She just knew everything. It was great. I felt like I was just being guided around. So it was incredible. So thank you, Kat. You've saved me today. And we've got Dan Lewis. Hi, Dan.
How's it going? You good? What's good, people? I'm excited. I've been watching you guys for a little while, and I love the way you said it before. That you said it perfectly. I thought I was trying to think of a way to say it, but the audience in the comments, they're like the extra panel member. I love that. That's a vibe, man.
That's what we're all about. We want to make sure that everyone who participates in the show feels like they are actually participating rather than just watching a few people chat, because we react to what you say, and and that's it. We've got 5 panel members. So you do ByWire News, don't you? Is that right?
That's it. We got the on the ByWire show. We're up to our 15th episode now. Every Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. ByWire News, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We're broadcasting there, and it's basically me just chatting about the news. Really, one of the things I believe in is independent media. So you guys are kind of doing it yourselves. You know what I mean? And that meaning, media that is run by the people, not by big organizations, corporately funded, with massive interests of certain governments or certain politicians. And it's about making sure that also holding, the people in power, the people who hold power, to account. And we have a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of, we've got hundreds of independent media partners, and I love spending the whole day just going through all the different articles and then finding the best pieces, because you find the stuff that you literally do not see in the mainstream media.
Yeah, it's really good, actually. I find it a really entertaining show as well, because your delivery isn't exactly like a boring BBC News reporter, is it? It's just, a real person, and that's what we're all about as well, like kind of having people who are relatable on the show. So, you're dead welcome, and I asked anyone, well, I recommend anyone to go and watch ByWire News, because it is.
Well, we know Jane Strange
brilliant.
is. Big up Jane Strange for watching. I see the comment there.
Yeah, she's great, Jane. She's been on the show, and she's actually really, really good. It's funny as well, because we do a podcast, an audio podcast as well, and you'd think when we got like a big name on that would increase the the amount of listens we get, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. So Jane's now in our most popular version ever of this show, which was last week. So maybe we're just on a getting more popular thing. Who knows? But I hope everyone's
shame
enjoying
you got me
it.
on tonight.
No, I'm sure we'll continue growing. I can't even remember what we talked about last week, but it was definitely good. So if you haven't listened to that one yet, go back and listen to it. Okay, so that awful video. What do we think, Laura?
I genuinely can't even look at him. And I didn't need to see those pictures. Thankfully, I managed to sidestep the video. I have not seen that yet. That video.
That video, the Sextopus video.
Oh, wait a minute.
Where that's how we've been describing it today, the Sextopus, because for some reason, while he's kissing the woman, he goes for the knee with his hand. He kind of like reaches down to her knee. And someone said he's like a sex octopus, and then it became Sextopus. So I want that to stick. Yeah, the Sextopus.
I think it probably will. It's just so infuriating, the whole thing. I mean, aside from the fact that, you've got to feel for his wife and his kids, and I think the woman involved has a partner as well. There's that whole moral side of it. But for me, I mean, I guess I don't like celebrity or famous people's private lives being dragged through the mud. But if you are somebody who enforces and tells people what they should and shouldn't be doing at risk of going to prison, and then break those rules yourself, that is just the height of hypocrisy, and just another example of the corrupt system we're under. Because let's face it, this is not the first. It's not going to be the last. It is ongoing. It's another thing to try and tell people about, but I just feel like people are just so willing to accept the crap that these awful people do. And it's just like, please, look at this. Don't just think it's a man having an affair. Let's just ignore the sleazy side of it, please. I don't need to think about that. Let's have a look at the corrupt nature of what is actually going on here. Not only is he paying someone he's sleeping with, he was, as Paul Smith was rightly saying, he was allowed to resign. He wasn't sacked, but then can you really sack somebody for doing something that you've done? Boris Johnson would be a huge hypocrite if he was like, oh, he shouldn't have sacked someone else. It's like, the whole thing's just a mess. It really is. Our system is absolutely shocking, and it's about time people saw these things for what they actually were. And it's, once again, we can do as we please, you can do as you're told. And that is, these people are supposed to be elected by us, for us, and it's not a system that is working, and it's not that one that we should continue to support. And it's just pathetic. And his resignation was pathetic. And it's like, oh, sorry, I broke social distancing. There's so much of a bigger issue than just that, and that you got off with somebody else. Like that in itself, like, talk to your wife about that. But the rest is just hideous.
Colin White coming in with a point there. No one's mentioning misconduct in the workplace. He's our boss. He's a boss. What about, it's an abuse of power, really, isn't it? He's not exactly going to be particularly successful unless he was a minister, I guess, in any respect. And he wasn't particularly successful as that. But Mark, what do you think?
I mean, first thing you've got to think about is it's the great British exceptionalism. One rule is for the plebs and another rule for them because they're British higher citizens. I mean, how many single people have had to, or couples who are not living together, have had to put their relationships on hold during lockdown, and what has happened there? I mean, when I heard about this, I tweeted this. Matt Hancock has resigned due to having an affair during lockdown on the day that 18,270 new cases of COVID were added to the 4,717,811 total cases of COVID, and we've had in the UK, and 23 people lost their lives to COVID, adding to the total of 128,089 people that have died from COVID. But it's not just him. The whole of this government, I think, are guilty of a crime which is called democide, which is where an elected government do not act to save their people. They just worked too slowly. We can see it, and we're not, thankfully, not covered by parliamentary rules, so we can call it what it is. It's jobs for the mates. It's free stuff. It'd be interesting to go through all the contracts and go, this is what we've paid out. Let's see what PPE. And it's not just him. We could talk about Jeremy Hunt. There's a thing called Operation Cygnus, is it, or something like that, in 2016. Every problem we've had during this pandemic was predicted in that war game of a pandemic.
And Dan, I'm sure that you've got similar opinions, but would you care to, elaborate?
I think Paul Smith has said it right. He should have resigned or been sacked for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, it's not solely down to him, but it is a health crisis. Also, on top of that, let's be honest. There should have been sackings a long time ago. There's the NHS. There's his handling of social care, the fact that he's not even bothered, that Boris is not well, he's probably in on it, but Boris didn't even turn up to a meeting about social care this week. There's so much more to this guy's job, and just as Laura said, go back to this whole celebrity lifestyle of people's personal lives, and let's not forget the kids that are involved in this. They've got it for the rest of their lives, albeit they may have a silver spoon in their mouths to help them along the way. These things aren't nice for anyone, no matter who you are. And so looking at the guy's job, misconduct in the workplace, breaching COVID rules, go back further and further. There are problems coming out now with the vaccine rollout in regards to people cancelling, getting double booked, or not being registered properly. There's the Excel spreadsheet that didn't log things properly. It just goes on and on and on and on. And if you really want to comment on man's behavior around women, we all saw it in the video when he was in Warrington outside the hospital. Like, man had a big lob on there, like, yes, there's a woman next to me. It's like those guys, like when you see the screenshots from the DMs. He's that guy. He's that guy in the DMs. Like, every woman knows a Matt Hancock, surely, because he's in her DMs, just like, yeah, see, Laura's got, sorry, Laura, on behalf of men, I'm sorry. Like, we are trash, honestly. But yeah.
Hashtag not all men.
hashtag blame Matt. You know what I mean? And man's played a crafty one. Now, I'm going to say something that a lot of people might disagree with me on. I don't know. But, like, this, we knew this was coming. Like, we definitely knew this was coming, right? And don't tell me you didn't when you if you've seen the video now. It's hard to see that video without having to come across a certain logo. There are copies of it out there, and if you do want to see it, DM me. But he, it looks fake. I'm gonna say it looks fake. It looks set up. This looks way more set up than any other kind of scandal before. Like, I genuinely think this, like, whether he has got a thing going on with her or not, that moment in front of that camera was set. Why is there a camera in front of that door? Why did he not know there's a camera in front of that door? He went to the effort of looking out the door, but didn't notice the blood clot camera right there in his face. Like, come on. Like, you don't not know. People, it's 2021. You notice cameras. You get me? Like, maybe because he's white, he doesn't notice cameras as much as I would. But surely people notice cameras. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, come on. That it was set up. I think the whole thing is orchestrated. It's orchestrated to distract people because they want to distract you from the fact that figure numbers are going up. They want to distract you from the fact that people are arguing with them on whether to wear masks or to socially distance. Just on the news this week in the morning, on the morning news, I forget which morning program, they were talking about the rule to take off masks, and people were against it. People were against it. But if you put a Tory MP into a little love triangle, boy, everyone would get distracted, wouldn't they? That's my view.
I nearly 100% agree with that, but I do think that Matt Hancock is quite easily stupid enough to not notice a camera and be like, "Oh, sneaking about, I'm okay here," and I think probably as well he's got that arrogance about him, hasn't he? Like, it only matters if I'm caught by the people who know who I am. This won't get leaked by anyone else. Like, Boris is my friend. He'll be that naive guy who's like, you know, the one who like comes in and gives his dinner money to the bully every day and thinks it's his friend. You know, that's probably the relationship he's got. And then Johnson probably has leaked it out to you know, distract from things. But you know, I'm not sure. Did anyone mention the fact that like he gave that contract for what was it, as test tubes to his mate from the pub? Like, you know, we've forgotten more about this absolute horror show than anyone's probably done in the past. Like, we've seen political scandals. Like in Theresa May's government, there were people resigning all the time and forced to resign all the time, and some of them were really serious, like Priti Patel's, like trying to give out foreign aid budget to Israel allegedly. And then there's also like, you know, there were less serious ones where they were just like kind of I've misled the House by accident. You know, they made a mistake, but or Amber Rudd taking one for the team basically when Theresa May had done some awful things as Home Secretary, and she's like, well, I'm the Home Secretary now, so I'm going to have to fall on the sword for what Theresa May did. So there was that kind of thing, and now there's this, and it's like, whoa, this corruption's so deep and so bad, you know. Like, anyone just come in at this point, I think we're going to lose any structure here. So anyone come in at any point.
Do you think, though, that one thing, we talked about it once on a Politically Unmuted, and I think I scared John with this when I said, is this the dead cat? What are they trying to... By a dead cat, what I meant was you throw something on the table to distract everybody from everything else. Is this the dead cat? And it's not the only one. I mean, I'm getting messages from my CLP sec saying, don't forget to mention, because I'm in South Staffordshire, and obviously our lovely Frank Spencer lookalike has been fantastic with what he's done with schools. Where are all these laptops? But, you know, what is the dead cat that they're trying to get through? Is it they're trying to sneak through Kill the Bill? Or, sorry, sneak through the police and crime? Because you've got to look for what the story is. They're trying to not to hide, to sneak through, you know, and that's what we as people on the left have to say. And, you know, it's like, yeah, what he's done is wrong, granted, but what are you trying to get to hide behind? What are you trying to bury?
Speaking of Frank, he's another one who allegedly did a treason. So, you know, they were the ones they brought back into the cabinet, weren't they, who resigned? You know, the rest of them kind of disappeared through the wayside. Although, isn't Javid back? Is Javid the new guy?
Yeah, Javid's the new Health Secretary.
Oh, God.
Prepare for power stance.
Another banker. Yeah. God, right. So, anyone want to come in any more on this? Or I think have we done enough of Hancock tonight? Are we sick to death of him? Are we going to move on from him? Or
I think it has to be noted that like when you're talking about, you know, the reasons why Hancock's resigned and the stuff he's been involved in, like the problems with Hancock were long before COVID. You know, you remember back to every single thing that he's been in charge of during the pandemic, but there's been so much more before then. And this resignation is just an absolute slap in the face to working class people. Like it is just such a slap in the face, considering how much he got away with, not just before COVID. And when people sit there, and I think part of it is to do with Batley and Spen, but when you think about the reason why he's resigned on a Saturday after, you know, there's been a day of all this going on, it's just a slap in the face and it's ugly. And I hope that people remember it when they go to the ballot box, whether it is in Batley or at the next elections, the, you know, general election.
yeah, I think that's a bit of a. I think that sums it up perfectly. Almost a mic drop moment there. Yeah, he's speaking of slaps in the face. Remember when his aide was punched in the face, but turned out it was just someone who like walked into someone's hand, you know, and that went out in the press. So the press have got a lot to answer for in this case as well, for blindly sticking to it, as have the Labour leadership, to be honest. For, you know, the last time Matt Hancock get demanded, like the people were demanding his resignation, didn't Starmer say, "Oh, and I'm not going to ask for his resignation"? He did this time over sleaze, but didn't do it over doing his job. Come on, I think that's just a come on. Let's be better than this. But anyway, moving on. Right, so the Rickard sisters. Laura, do you want to lead off on this one? You interviewed the Rickard sisters.
Yeah, it was a really, really good interview. And actually, it was probably the first one I've done in a while that was actually really positive and didn't make me cry. It was really lovely. So, for anyone who missed it, the Rickard sisters are sisters who have developed a graphic novel version of The Ragged Trousered Philanthropist. It took them 2 years to make it. It is absolutely incredible, and I think the idea behind it was to make it. It was something. I think their dad had given them a copy of this book when they were little, and it was always just like a big paperweight in the house, and they didn't get around to reading it until they were much older. And it just makes it so much more accessible for people because, you know, the book is one of those things where everyone's like, "Oh God, you've got to read it. Everybody has to read it," but it's like depressing and it's really big, and who's got time? But this sticks true to the original story, but it's done in a really creative way, and it is a graphic novel. It's essentially a grown-up comic book. So I'm ordering my copy tomorrow because I've had my payday. And they do another really interesting thing actually. They're not just trying to sell it. What they're trying to do is get people to buy it for schools and for prisons. So you can donate a copy through their website, which I think is really, you know, really important, a really good thing to do. Because the story behind it, you know, it is as relevant now as it's always been. Depressingly so, I might add. It's horrendous that we haven't quite come any further from those that will rule us and keep us down, but also a stark example of why we need to keep going. You know, since that was written, we now have you know, trade unions, and we have health and safety at work, as was said in the interview. You know, we've got working hours are much better. We have a weekend. So many things, so many huge wins for working class people that now people just take for granted. So I think it will be a reminder to keep going and that you can make a change. And that, you know, we've had all of these lessons before in the past, and we need to learn them because nothing is really hugely. If things are moving forward, but we if you read it, you'll realise we are still in the same position as we were in 1903 or whenever it was. You know, it's yeah, but it was a really good interview, and it'll be out on podcast tonight because I've already done it. So I'll set that up to go tonight. And it's on YouTube, so you can rewatch it again there. Just really, really lovely women who just really care about what they do and are really talented and really clued up on everything. And it was just a pleasure to do that interview.
True to form, our viewers Jane's come in with a you can donate a copy to a school or prison. She's sent the link in there, which is really really good. It's just like again, it's the fifth the fifth member of the panel who's just like actually probably even better than that because you got live links and everything. Make sure if you do have any questions for anyone on the panel, by the way, just stick them in there, and we're going to start answering questions in a little bit. Dan, have you read the Ragged Trousered Philanthropist all the way through? And I'm going to admit now that I got stuck about halfway through, but I did really enjoy what I read. I just got tired.
No, I've not read it all the way through. But I've got a fun fact about the author. Robert Tressel. I've forgotten his real name, but basically, I live down the road, like a 5-minute drive from the prison in where he died, and just over the road is his grave. Well, it's not his grave. There's a gravestone in memory of him in a graveyard. And there's like a society of people that, put money in and collect money, do fundraisers to maintain the gravestone and, just keep it nice and neat and stuff. And a couple of years ago here in Liverpool, we had a memorial march parade thing. It was mad. It was like a really cold February morning. I think it was cold anyway. And we marched from like the prison, the gates of the prison, round into Walton and then to the gravestone. And then afterwards, there was this big beef on Facebook about the fact that Robert Tressel, the author, was actually a racist. And it's like, do we celebrate people because they're racist, or because or do we kind of forgive them because it's of the time what they did? Oh, well, that was acceptable to be that racist then. So, and there was this whole like big debate, and it was between a well-known person in Merseyside politically, and also a well-known historian in Liverpool who specializes in Black history here. So there's a fun fact for you. I thought I'd just add that in, but I'm excited to hear the podcast, definitely.
God, I would have really, really loved to have been at that debate. I would have really enjoed listening to the arguments for that one.
I'll send you the link. Yeah.
Yes, please do. We'll put that up. That sounds amazing. I'd love to watch that.
That's all right. Jane's really surprised he died in prison. I didn't know that either.
No, I didn't.
I believe so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. I may have got that wrong. So, impress, get me. I don't care. Cancel me.
We never do cancel on this show. We're against the idea of cancelling. We just, like, what? What's the point in thinking that? What's the point in being an anti-racist if you're just going to cancel all the racists forever? You know what I mean? You got to accept that they might get better. Yeah, you got to try and make people change their minds. But Mark, do you want to come in then?
Yeah, I mean, I actually haven't read the book, but I listened to it on an audio book. I wish there was a left-wing audio book system rather than the one we all have to use, but never mind. And it was done by what's his face, Tony Robinson and Stephen Twigg as Barrington. It was quite interesting. I mean, I said in the chat during the podcast, I think that every new member of the Labour Party should get a copy of the Ragged Trousered Philanthropist. I actually got it from, in a reverse way to the sisters. I got it from my father for his Father's Day present because he was interested because we started talking about it. I mean, it does. A lot of us, if everyone on this podcast was asked to describe socialism, they'd all come up with different things, and it does show a few things. I mean, when I remember listening to it, because Tony Robinson was doing all his Baldrick style voice, and it just seems like Mugsborough was just where Baldrick came from. But there's one part in it where the foreman cuts down people's wages. What's that? Fire and rehire. And there's another great on YouTube where somebody's done the money trick, which is about how capitalism works. And they've done it with it was about 10 years ago, so the resolution's terrible. Maybe Dan and I ought to work on doing a new one, but with modern people. And it just, there's so much about it where they're talking about the Italian ice cream sellers, and that could just be the immigrants nowadays in it and what have you. And and I think every socialist at the top of their list, is it should be the Ragged Trousers Philanthropist, and then David Graeber's books. These are things that we should do. Dan's probably going to disagree with me now.
Plenty of good books on that you could also do, but I definitely agree with David Graeber there as well. David Graeber was great. Any other book recommendations before we move on? Because we're going to move on to the People's Assembly rally today. Any more book recommendations? I've just done the what is it called? The Code of Capital or something, which is really interesting, which is like all about how the reason that capitalism is so successful is because basically so that like all the people who are talented in law are working on coding to make sure that the wealth is always protected for the wealthy, and because the wealthy have access to those lawyers, so it's basically like states need to dismantle this legal framework and bring it back to sort of public accountability rather than behind closed door deals. It's really, really good by a German professor who works in America somewhere. So yeah, that one was good. That one's the one I've just finished.
I'm still going through Paint Your Town Red by Matt Brown, basically the leader of Preston City Council. And the thing to realise with the Preston model, which I think we don't shout about enough, quite frankly, is it's not a formula. You've got to look and see how to get local things in, and I think that's a really good thing that the Preston model people should look at. But I can give recommendations on those things all night, as you'll know from the chat.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Jump in before we move in?
Of course, yeah.
Move on. Sorry, move in. Tim said that. Tim Dredge. The original was mainly written in 1910. Robert Noonan was his real name. Born in Ireland, I think. Noonan was moved to Liverpool Infirmary from prison, I think, and died of tuberculosis. I think that's what TB is. In 1911. I'm sure I learned that all when I lived in Liverpool and have remembered correctly. Big up Tim, man. Tim with the vibes and the knowledge, yeah?
Tim's our knowledge man for sure. He's always with the links and he knows everything. He's very handy to have watching.
Yeah, he either knows everything or he's just incredibly good at Google. Like, and really quick. He's always helping us out. Right, People's Assembly. I was there today. Was it just me there today, out of us? So I travelled up and down today to London. So I guess it's. Have you got any questions about it?
How big was it?
Yeah,
I don't know. So we discussed this, and Kat Cray again. These skills that people have. So because she works in the tube line, she's saying, well, one tube will fit 1,000 people on. I was like, what? One tube train fits 1,000 people on? She's like, yeah, that's what it is. So I was trying to think from that and how many people that would be. And she thought about 8,000. I thought low thousands, man. I thought low thousands. It wasn't a huge one. It was really easy to kind of get a view at the front. But there was the biggest contingent was probably pro-Palestinian. There was a big section at the front that was all pro-Palestine, and there was I shared a tweet earlier on from Socialist Think Tank's Twitter that was like, we were underneath, those big balloons you get, like those CWU balloons, and we were beneath that, and there was free Palestine. It was like hairs on the back of the neck stuff. It was really, really good, and it was really nice to be in that. I got quite a buzz, when the buzz you get in a big crowd. It was it was really positive in that respect, but the crowd could have been bigger. But you understand, like, people don't necessarily want to go during, like, the pandemic isn't over. I'm double vaccinated, so I suppose I'm a little bit smug with myself and like, yes, I can go and do these things. But but I think a lot of people who care on the left, and then straight afterwards we had the anti-vax, anti-mask rally that came in afterwards, which was much bigger. Far bigger. There were like thousands upon thousands of them, but it was the most dull thing I have ever seen. Like, we were leaving as they were coming in. So when like we're going through and there's a samba band playing and there's chanting and there's people dancing around and it's properly diverse and like, you know, and then it just had a load of like really boring middle-aged white people just walking really slowly as if like, you know, like, I don't know, it wasn't like walking to a football match or anything. It was just walking really, really slowly with no music, no nothing, no atmosphere. And you think, dear me, you want your lives back? I think you're probably better off in the house. You know, they seemed incredibly dull people, but maybe maybe I'm just being a bit harsh there. So sorry. There might have been some really lovely, kind people who do all sorts for people in that, but that wasn't the impression I get. They came and shouted at me for having a mask on, and they shouted it. They came over to shout at Kat for having a mask. Like, oh, this is why, and she immediately pulled a mask on to wind them up. So they were upset about that. So yeah.
The thing about that for me, that is really infuriating, that because there are so many arguments why you should wear a mask. Like, but if you don't want to, right, I disagree with you. But why would you shout at someone for wearing one? They're not taking anything away from you. In fact, if the rumours that you disbelieve are true, they're actually helping you. Why would you be angry about it? People are far too busy getting angry about other people's choices. It pisses me off so much. And I'm not just talking about masks. We can get into it if you want. Maybe we won't.
There's a
what Stuart
whole
said?
hypocrisy.
Uh-huh.
There's a whole
No, I
hypocrisy to the whole thing, isn't there? Like, it's about
yeah.
freedom, but like generally I've found that the people on the whole, and there's a difference. See, there's two types as well. Like, and I don't like to put people in boxes, but you know, to kind of categorize things. There's people who don't believe in masks. Maybe they don't believe in COVID or whatever, but they're not shouting at people about it. They're just getting on with their lives. They're doing what they're doing. And I know a lot of people who are doing that. They say to me, "Oh, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not asked." You know what I mean? And they'll get on with their lives, but they won't have a go at me because I do wear a mask. But then there's the other side where it's like, I want my freedom. I don't have to wear a mask. And it's like, cool, you have your freedom. But then they shout you down for using your freedom to do.
Yeah. Totally. It's just so.
And it's
so
being
annoying.
whipped up as well. What's disgusting as well is it's being whipped up within a lot of other things. You see it. And no matter what anyone says, right? Like, I've been a brown man on this earth for 30 years. Yeah. And it's being whipped up around a load of just basically what's the word, bigoted stuff. Like, people, it's so big. The UKIP flags turn up. The Britain First flags turn up. The Trump flags were there today. I saw on Twitter. Oh my
mate,
Lord.
get over it. He's gone. Jesus.
No, it said Trump 2024.
Oh, can you imagine?
And like, it's fine. Like, okay, there's loads of people with different views, but the way I see the world is, if I'm a socialist, that means I'm an anti-capitalist. And if I'm an anti-capitalist, then I'm anti those things. I'm also an anti-racist, anti-homophobia person. You know what I mean? Like, so when those people start turning up, I'm not going to cancel them. Like you said before, you know, you don't cancel people on this show. That's absolutely fine. But I might step away. I might walk away because I don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? I'm walking, and that's exactly why I haven't got time for a lot of these freedom marches, as they hypocritically call themselves. I think it's silly.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see Stuart's comment as well? Because it was someone else had mentioned, Joe McCluskey had mentioned the Trump 2024 flag walk past. But Stuart had mentioned, because Stuart was there with me today as well, and he said he saw an anti-freedom protester who had a literal tinfoil hat. Proper tinfoil hat on.
Oh man.
That's really good. Yeah, they did tickle me a little bit today, but the rest of it was like pretty, like our march pretty vibrant. The speeches were dead good.
What was your favourite speech?
It was one beforehand. There was a young woman from Liverpool who, she said she had been in care and she got a job for the council because of that, and she has blue hair, and
Was her name
she was
Chantel?
incredible. Yes, that was Chantel. I was trying to remember her name there. Chantel. She was my favourite speech. I'd never heard her speak before, and she was really awesome at the beginning. And I kind of care. I work in a special school where people are in care and things like that. Some people are in care. Oh, most people who work in a school know people who are in care, and it was really nice to have a positive story. And also, she was like dancing around and being really like fun and stuff, like at the front of the march with her megaphone. So that was possibly my favourite, but I suppose most people's favourite would have been Jeremy Corbyn's speech. Zara Sultana was amazing as well, by the way, and we put videos out of both of them today.
Yeah, we did.
We
And
did a
Zara
live one of Jeremy, and then
Zara specifically said, Hancock, you need to go. And then he went, so she kind of won.
yeah, she did it. Yeah, I cut it off there, and then she said amazing things after that. But I was trying to get a Twitter length video. We do these things. But it was just so interesting. And at the end of the Corbyn video, I turned it around on myself and said, like, well, it wasn't exactly we support the government by Starmer, but it'll do. And I'm honestly, I couldn't be more gutted about what we've become. There was a passionate speech with people cheering and everyone together and feeling like they were part of something. And then you've got, we support the government. It's ridiculous, like where we've moved to and where we've been. Mark, I haven't heard from you in a little while. You've been quiet. So.
Yeah, I try not to, because I could jump in all the time, and that's what I try not to do. I mean, unfortunately, I've been having to deal with family things all day. I was going to be down there with my cameras, but unfortunately, I haven't. I mean, thank you for actually splitting up the speeches, and my mum and I were wondering what you said after the Jeremy Corbyn thing. But the thing is, people don't. The thing with masks is this: masks are there to protect everybody else. If you ever, because I'm a big wrestling fan. I watch a lot of Japanese wrestling. You'll always see them in the crowd with masks on because they've got a cold and they don't want to give it to other people. And I mean, after COVID's over, if I'm going to be travelling on trains, especially in the winter, I'm probably going to wear a mask just to keep things safe with that. And I mean, I think that the whole rally, and there's so many things like even Socialist think tank, it shows socialism. We all bring our bits together and make a bigger whole, if that makes sense. Do you get what I mean by that? Yeah, and I think that's what we need to do, and that is what we on the left do. What I can't do, Paul or Laura or Dan does, and we all mesh together, and I think that's a thing we need to show more of, and that's what we are. We are greater than the sum of our parts.
Yeah, and that's the whole. That's what it felt like today when you're on the march. It felt like you were part of something. You're part of something different. You're part of something special. You're all different, and that's what makes you the same. Do you know what I mean? Like that you accept that we're all different, and you accept one another's diversity. And there was some great, looking around the crowd and things, and there were people there for all sorts of different causes, which also made me think as well. Sometimes I think like we are so spread thin on everything that we do. We've got so many causes, all of which are valid, and we're like, right, we care about this, and we care about this, and we care about this, and it all falls in with a banner of socialism. But like, there's so much to put right, and it's so hard.
I was just thinking that, Paul. Somebody, I think it was Leanne, popped in the chat there. There was a big march in Birmingham for women's rights and like the about being safe on the streets and things like that, which is something obviously we've talked a lot about on our shows. I believe there was a pro-trans rally somewhere as well. You're right. There's just this. It can feel overwhelming. There's too much, and you can't pick one that's more important than the other because there's so much that needs writing. And I genuinely don't know how we do it, because I think you find on the left there are a lot of people who agree with what you're saying, but the activists who get out on the ground and do stuff, there's just not enough of us, and it's hard because you do have to comment on every single thing, and you have to try and get that message out there, and you have to keep trying to fight for all these things, but there's just so much, and it's getting more and more every day. The capitalism. Let's bring that down first, and I bet a lot of the problems go away.
I think so. We're getting
Build a
confirmation from Tim.
bonfire, build a bonfire. Sorry.
Yeah, Tim's confirming a lot about Chantel there. But she was particularly powerful. That was right at the beginning of the match, and Laura Pidcock was like comparing that as well. One thing I found very, very interesting about, and I mentioned it to Laura earlier on, is like you've got the Unite General Secretary thing going on at the moment, and you've got Steve Turner, who's one of the co-chairs of the People's Assembly, and people have been calling Steve Turner a right winger, and it's like people who are nowhere near as left as Steve Turner have been saying, "Oh, he's on the right winger," because they've read certain media reports and stuff. And I find it all quite silly the way it's become such a divisive thing. Like, it's possible to have more than one person on the left. You don't need I don't believe in like that kind of figurehead leader on the left. I don't. Obviously, Jeremy Corbyn became that, but figurehead leaders are a bit. It causes division. I think we should all be together and trying to push in the same direction and accept that, everyone on this call here and all the people in the comments appear to be pretty left, and I'll be quite happy with to say that. I wouldn't be, but I'm the leftist though. I'm the most lefty left. It's not about that, is it? I thought that was a bit divisive as well. And in the speech today, Howard Beckett was saying like he was the guy. Steve Turner's the only guy from the left. But his supporters last week were saying that Steve Turner wasn't left, which he clearly is, and it's just a bit silly and messy, I think.
That's the power of media, though, isn't it? There was another guy near us during the Black Country Birmingham West Midlands Metro Mayor, and that I think the people, and I fell for it by that certain media organisation called Pete Lowe, a centrist candidate, and Pete Lowe, I've known him for years. He is not. And I think they need to improve their journalism, shall we say, a little, and need to be taken now with a bit of salt. Shall we say? Is that being a bit too controversial?
Don't know.
I don't think. I genuinely, at this point, don't think there's such a thing on this show as too controversial. We just.
Oh, by the way, I didn't give you in the briefing. You are allowed to swear, by the way, but. What's that?
Oh, is it? Yeah, that's good to know. We can swear. I was being careful,
I noticed earlier on. That's why I said
it. on the Unite stuff. If I'm able to comment on that, right? So, like, I just feel like generally it's not just Unite stuff on the left, right? Can we stop worshipping white men, like old white men? Like, there are so many women and trans men and disabled people and black and brown people. And, there's so many socialists that aren't just one formation. Now, I'm not saying that any of these white men that currently are leaders, Jeremy, Steve, Howard, they're great people. All I'm saying is, we seem to be getting in some really, really narrow conversations about who should be leading the movement, when really now I'm more of a communist than I am most things, really. But like, I believe in people powered kind of movements and people powered structures, and that means that you don't have one person at the top. You have groups of people that represent different backgrounds. And I'm gonna flip right back to the beginning of the show where we talked about Hancock. Hancock resigned from his post as health minister. Hancock is still an MP, a member of parliament. It is very difficult for his constituents to be able to remove him as an MP, right? It's not undoable, but it's difficult. There's a difference. You know what I mean? It's not impossible. And I think too often when we talk about the great democracy of Great Britain, and this is still, I'm thinking about the conversation about Unite here, is too often we think about democracy in regards to electing individuals or groups of individuals. We don't ever think about just electing groups of people that represent a wide base, that represent everyone, that can come together around really good ideas. In my opinion, socialist ideas. And I think it's a horrible state of affairs that the left will get ourselves in such a mess over these elections. And in between these elections, we don't spend any of our time trying to fix them. 5 years, Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party. And in that time, how many times did people fall out over open selections, over reform of party rules, over the EU stuff, about the things that we can actually have a big impact on, we can change to be able to reset the structures, reset our surroundings, and actually elect people that represent us. And by that, I mean groups of people. We missed all of those opportunities. So when we do look at the last 5 years or 6 years, there's so many missed opportunities. So many great things happened and we were distracted by so many things. I'm not disregarding all of that. But I definitely think we need to stop thinking about single people as our representatives of mass movements. Because at the end of the day, even if you do get a non-binary trans woman from India standing in an election, they're not going to represent the white men, are they? Do you know what I mean? Flip it on its head. Whereas if you have that trans woman and someone to represent the white men and someone to represent disabled people, all different groups in a format, it makes such a difference, I think, in my opinion. And that's a better. I agree with Neil. People in society are too obsessed with celebrity. You bang on the money there. Forget the last 5 minutes of what I said, just what Neil said. But yeah, exactly. But no, exactly that. And I think we need to really start rethinking the structures rather than fighting over the individuals.
I'm like, inside I'm cheering so loudly. I really wish we could find a way where we could get rid of the parliamentary structure completely. It doesn't work at all. What we need is sort of localized groups to decide what happens locally, community groups, collectivism on a local level. One guy at the top deciding what's best for everybody up and down the country is just clearly absurd. And they've all proven that they don't, even the local people who select them, and now we're in a position where the local people aren't even selecting these MPs, are going then to go, I know what's best for you.